Hello and welcome. Hi, my name's Dave, and today we're going to build a multi-level navigation menu with HTML and CSS only. Our menu will have accessibility features, it will be responsive and adapt to both mobile and desktop screens, and it will function as a multi-level drop-down navbar menu. And no doubt there are many great navbar and drop-down menu tutorials out there, but one must feature is often left out, and before this tutorial is over, I'm going to show you what that is. Before we start coding today, this is a great time to have a discussion about absolute and relative positioning. And also I'm using Flexbox right here in the navbar. So for these first four menu items in our first unordered list, this is all displayed in Flex, and a Flexbox by default has a row instead of a column. So I'm just taking these list items from the unordered list and letting them display as a Flexbox in a default row. But after that, we take advantage of relative and absolute positioning. And the parent always needs to be relative, and then what is positioned absolutely is in relation to the parent. So while I have a menu at the top and then four menu items, each one of these menu items is positioned relative, and that lets me absolutely position a sub-menu that contains its own sub-items. So the sub-menu, and I will right-click and inspect. Here, let me do that again. Right-click and inspect. So the sub-menu that I'll highlight here, when we look at the styles, it is positioned absolutely. And that's a good thing. We need that positioned absolutely. But then the items within the sub-menu are positioned relatively. So again, this menu item is in a flex box, but it's positioned relatively, so I can absolutely position the sub-menu. The sub-menu contains sub-items, and those sub-items are positioned relatively, so I can absolutely position another sub-menu that goes another layer deeper. And then if we were to do the same thing here, we could go another layer and another layer if we want to. Now that we've taken a look at how the menu works, let's start writing the code. I have a new folder opened in Visual Studio Code. On the right, we have our finished product in mobile view, and you can see we'll open the menu. We get four sections, letters A through G, H through N, and so on. If I click one of those sections, then we get the submenu of each individual letter. I click that and we get the names that begin with that specific letter. And so let's begin over here by creating an index.html file. We'll start with an IMID abbreviation, and I'm going to hide the file tree now just to give us a little more room. And in this IMID abbreviation here, I'm going to type employee directory because that's what we're creating today. For the title, this is the IMID abbreviation actually for the skeleton of the page. Once we typed an exclamation mark, it filled it all out for us, and that's great. Now we're going to need a CSS file, so I'm going to once again bring the file tree back over by pressing Control-B in Visual Studio Code, create a new folder named CSS, and in that folder, main.css, and we'll save that. An empty CSS file right now, but we can link to it with a link, a rel attribute, it says style sheet, and then an href that looks for the CSS folder, and inside that the main CSS file. We'll save that and we'll start on the skeleton of our page. And right now I'm just going to expand the Visual Studio Code window so we can see a little bit better. And we'll start with a header, and this header is followed by, well, there we'll have something in the header, but it's followed by a main element as well. And we're going to give this an ID equal to main also. Nothing really going in the main element for this because we just need to fill out the page. Okay, in the header is where everything's going to happen for this tutorial because we're building a nav menu. We're going to start out with a div though. And this div is going to have a class equal to title, where we'll put the title, and then flex center, which is another class that we'll use for flexbox and centering things. We'll put the title in here, all caps, employee. Now I'm going to, I guess, put a space and then a break, and I'll give this line break a class of mobile break. And this is something I like to do sometimes so I can force a wrap of words in the line. And so I want employee on one line and directory on the other line until we get to a certain size, and then I'll hide the break, and then it will just all be one line. Okay, after the div, we'll start our nav, lowercase, and I'll give it a class of nav as well. Everything else will go inside the nav. And one of the first things we're going to have on the mobile side is a div with the ID equal to hamburger. We'll give it a class equal to hamburger as well, and we'll give it flex center also. Inside the div, we're going to put a font awesome icon for the hamburger menu. If you want an animated hamburger menu, I have done that in another Navbar video, and there'll be a link to that in the top right. Go to cdnjs.com, search for font awesome, and copy the link. Now that we have the link from cdnjs.com, let's paste that right inside of our HTML. Let's actually put it above our CSS, and we'll save that line. I'll go ahead and I'm going to press Alt-Z in Visual Studio Code, and that will wrap the lines if they get too long like that, so you can just see it wrap around so we can see the full thing. And from there, we also need to grab the icon at fontawesome.com. Go to fontawesome.com/icons. When the search page appears, search for bars. Click on the bars icon, and on the bars page, click on the available icon tag to copy the HTML. Now that we've got the bars icon from fontawesome.com, we can put that in, and that will give us our hamburger menu right there. Again, if we want an animated hamburger menu, which is often the case, I have designed one of those in another video, which I'll have the link below, and I have shared the link above already. And then you could put that same style in here. I just don't want to focus on that today. I want to focus on the multi-level menu. Okay, let's start building the menu. And we start with an unordered list, and it will have a class equal to menu, and we'll also give it that flex center class. Inside the unordered list, we'll start our list items, and here we'll have an li with a class of menu item and the flex center class. And then we're also going to have a tab index equal to 0. And then we'll give this A through G classification. Now I'll go ahead and copy this, and I'll paste it 3 more times for the other menu lists. And here we've got A through G, and so the next will be H through N. And then we'll do O through U and V through Z. And those are our menu headings, but now we're going to have nested lists within those. Okay, we'll start the next submenu by breaking the A to G onto a new line. And then on the next line under the A to G, we'll start another unordered list, and we'll give this list a class of submenu. Now in the unordered list with the submenu, we'll have a list item, and we'll have a class of sub item and a class of flex center, and then we'll have a tab index equal to 0. And then this list item will have the letter A, and we'll end up doing this for each letter as we go. Just noticed I capitalized the I in tab index in the first couple we added. Go ahead and save that. I'm in the habit of doing that just because of, because of JavaScript, where I usually use camel case. Okay, tab index all lowercase. There we go. Now under the A, we once again start a nested list. This will be a UL with a submenu class and a sub-level class, because this is the next level down. And now here in this unordered list, we'll have a list item with a class of sub item and a class of flex center. And once again, we need to give a tab index equal to 0 on the list items. Now in this first list item, we'll put a link to, we'll just put a £sign here, but what we're linking to is Adam and any name. So we could also have another list item, and we'll make one for Alan, and we'll make one more for Alex. So you can see what we've constructed here just to get to the letter A. We start out with the larger list A through G, and then we just have the letter A. And from there, we have another nested unordered list, and in this list we get the individual names of the employees. Now there's one key attribute that we left out for accessibility here, and that is the ARIA label attribute, as we want to label a few things as we go. So for example, with the hamburger, and we've got a class of hamburger and flex center, it looks like I left off the tab index there as well, because we want to be able to tab over to that. But then we also want an ARIA label, so it says in plain English what that is. So we'll say mobile menu button, and that's good for the hamburger menu. But now when we get to these other menus, we also want to be specific. And so after the tab index here for A through G, I'll have ARIA label, because if not, it might just say A-G or something like that. And here we can say a plain, clear sentence. So employees with last names starting with letters A through G. And then likewise, once we get to the letter A, we can add another ARIA label. And here we'll say employees with last names starting with the letter A. So now we have provided screen readers with information as they tab through the menu as well. Now we would follow this pattern for every letter or grouping of letters, and then every letter in the alphabet as well, and then any names we want to add. So instead of having you watch me type all of that out, I'm going to pause, quickly copy and paste everything in, and come right back. Okay, I'm back and have pasted in similar sections for the letters B, C, D, E, F, and G, so I have names through that first section. The other menu sections I didn't go as deep, but at least I have the first section there for each of the individual letters, so we can see how this lays out. So let's go ahead and save this, and then I'm going to bring this back to a smaller size, and I'll right click and open with live server so we can see what it looks like. We haven't styled anything yet. It looks like I need to pull it over here to the page. But this is what we get with just the pure HTML. So you can see nested lists, and after G, where I didn't put as much information in the other submenus, we still have for the individual letters. Here's the hamburger menu icon, and here's our header. Now let's go ahead and style this page. Going to once again hide the file tree. We can do everything in the main.css file from here on out. I'll also pull up the mobile view so we can start to see changes here first. And we always start the page with a CSS reset. And that will be margin of 0, padding of 0, and box sizing of border box. After the CSS reset, we have the root element of HTML, and I'm going to set a background right here to black. You won't see it in the mobile view, but when we widen it out, we'll have that on each side of the body. Font size, and this is the root font size, so I set an absolute value. Here I'm going to set 22 pixels today, just a little larger. I'm going to go ahead and set the font family to be inherited. Line height, I'll set just a little higher than the default at 1.6. Letter spacing, 0.2 rem. And then color that can be inherited unless we change it in specific elements of F. And there we can see some changes already just with those few things we changed on the page. Now we'll put some styles in the body tag. I'm going to go ahead and give it a width of 100%, which is pretty much the same as the default. But from here, I'm going to set the max width at 800 pixels. And that is why we'll see a different body with the color or background of the HTML root element on the sides. Kind of using the body as a container today. A margin for the body, 0 on the top and bottom and auto on the left and right, so it gets centered. Min height, instead of 100 viewport units, I'm going to use 200 viewport units today to just give us a little higher default height. Display of flex and flex direction of column. And I'm giving that higher body height because we could be looking at our menu as it descends, and it could actually exceed the height of the page, even though the content of the page doesn't necessarily do that. Okay, header element and main element, we'll give both of those a width of 100%. And then for the header, we're going to have a height of 60 pixels. What happened there? I hit something I didn't mean to. 60 pixels for the header. A background of a flat black. Display of flex. We're going to justify the content to flex start. If we save that, it kind of messes things up for now, but we're going somewhere with this. Now for the main element, we're going to set a flex grow of 1 so it fills out the rest of the page. A background, one of my favorite named colors, papaya whip, and a color for font, not that we'll have any, that is just black. And there's that nice papaya whip color on most of the body. The navigation bar up here looks horrible right now, but we'll fix that. Okay, the H1 will set a default font size, 0.75 rem, so 75% of those 22 pixels that we set. And then anchor tags, text decoration, can't type today, of none, and then a color of white. That mobile break that I put in the employee directory wording, we'll go ahead and give it a display of block here, but we will change it later in a media query. That flex center class that we applied to many things is a display of flex, justify content of center, and align items center. And that changed things, but it didn't change them much for the better yet. After that, the title. This is where it says employee directory. 1 EM padding. Font weight we'll set to bolder. Flex grow to 1, and that's for mobile. Justify content to flex start. The employee directory part looks correct now. We just have a lot over here that's not quite the way we want it yet. After title, we'll go ahead and put a padding on the nav. And that is just padding on the top part of the nav to 40 pixels. And so you see that push things down just a little bit. Now we'll style the hamburger class. And that is that hamburger button. We'll give it a width of 60 pixels. Height of 60 pixels. The position will be absolute, top 0, left we'll use calc here, and we'll say 100%, minus 60 pixels. And then color we will set to white. And that positioned it absolutely where we want it. Now we'll add a menu class. And this is for the first level of the menu. And we're going to set the visibility to hidden. And then list style type to none. And that eliminates the bullets in the unordered list. Display of flex. Flex direction, while we're in the mobile view, needs to be column. And then we'll justify the content to flex start. We'll align the items to the bottom. And then we'll set a Z index of auto. Now, if we change this hidden to visible, we can see some of our menu here, but not much. So I'll go ahead and leave that hidden. Now, we'll need to go ahead and put a focus on the hamburger, and then the adjacent sibling, and that's what the plus symbol indicates, is the menu. Oh, I need a comma after that because I also want to put it on the menu hover. Here we'll put visibility equals visible, and we'll put a background dash color equal to white. Okay, scrolling up, we need to go ahead and start applying styles to the menu item. Give that a width of 100 pixels, an absolute value. Padding 0.5 EM and 1 EM on the sides. Outline we'll set to none. Position relative. Background color flat black of 333, and we'll set a transition. This is a small animation here. Background color and 0.3 seconds, ease in, out. Just give it a bit of a smooth change when we do change the background color. Now let's go to the sub menu. We'll give this a width of 120 pixels, visibility of hidden, and then we'll have a list style type once again of none, which will get rid of the list bullets because the sub menu is a list. And then position will be absolute. The top 80%, left minus 80%. From here, a background color of flat black, color of white, and then let's add a box shadow. This will be 2 pixels, Y and X, or X and Y. The blur, just a small 2 pixels also, and we'll make it a black shadow. Now let's give this a Z index of 1 because it will overlay the other menu. Let's see if anything's showing up yet. There, we've got our menu that shows up. Now let's go ahead and style the sub-level class. And this sub-level would be the next level down. So when we pull up the list of names, we'll give this a top 55%. And let's set the Z index here to 1 as well. We'll add a sub item with a width of 100%, a minimum width of 100 pixels, padding 1 EM and 1.5 EM on the sides, background color, same flat black, outline of none, position, relative, and the same transition as we change the background color to just give it a little smooth transition. Ease in, out. Save that. And now we're going to add some hover and focus styles to help the menu become visible. So we have the hamburger. Once again, I need to spell better. With a hover and a hamburger focus, and then a menu item with a hover, and a menu item with a focus, and a sub item with a hover, sub item with a focus, and then also a sub item with a focus within. And when any of this happens, we'll have the background color change to white. We'll essentially invert the colors, but then we'll go with a pure black instead of a flat black. And now when we click on the menu, it changes. If we click on any one of these letters, it changes. Let's continue to add some more hover and focus styles to make the menu become visible. A sub item, hover, and then a direct anchor link underneath, and this is when we link to a name, and a sub item, focus with the same, and then just an anchor with the focus. Here we'll change the color to black, and we'll increase the font size of the link by 20% just to make it a little more obvious that that's what's focused upon. And now we'll add a section where a menu item that is hovered on will affect any submenu underneath it. And we'll do the same for focus. And then we'll do the same for focus dash within, and then we'll put the style on the submenu that is underneath it. And now we'll do these same things. I'll just copy these. We'll do these same things, but instead of menu item, it will be the sub item that will have the same impact. Now we didn't put the style yet, so let's go ahead and do that. And this will just be visibility, visible. Now when I click on the letter, the next menu shows up and the next menu shows up. And that's what we were looking for. Now that we've accomplished everything we really wanted to in the mobile menu, let's go ahead and expand the page and expand what we're looking at into a larger menu. And something's not right. I need to fix this. And what's not cooperating is we haven't put in any of the non-mobile styles yet. So we need to add a media query for our desktop. And I'm going to have that media query break at 768 pixels. So we'll add our media query right underneath. Start a media query with @media only. Let me say screen, and now I'll give it a min width of 768 pixels. And now we'll start with our H1. Here we'll ramp the font size back up to the full root element font, and then the nav. We'll get a padding on top instead of 60 that had pushed it down, now has 0. But now we'll have the nav menu grow instead of the title. So we can now put the title and have that flex grow set to 0, so it's not the side that grows. We will hide that mobile break where we say employee directory. So we'll set that display to none. We'll add a hamburger style to go ahead and hide the hamburger menu. For the menu itself, we'll set the visibility to visible. Now we'll set the flex direction to row, and we'll justify the content by setting it to the flex end, because now this will be a horizontal row instead of the mobile menu as it shows. And we'll set the menu hover and menu focus with the background color of that flat black. And those are our desktop styles. Now let's go ahead and look at the changes that have happened because of them. And once we get a larger page, you can see it says employee directory all in one line. Now our A to G is over here, and as we hover or focus, the menus show as we expect. And everything looks like it's in order, but there's a couple of things we haven't yet finished. Okay, I promised we would cover one feature that is left out of many tutorials, but it's a must for a multi-level navigation menu or any large menu, and that is a skip to main content feature. You do not want to leave your users, especially those that must navigate with the keyboard, left tabbing through every level and every link in a huge menu. You need to allow them to skip that content. And so if we look at Google and I search for foo on Google and then I press tab, the very first thing you see is a skip to main content feature. And you want to build one of those into your website and navigation menus also. It's so important because if not, you've created a virtual hell for your users that cannot just use a mouse and skip over that, because navigating through an alphabetical menu, as in our example of an employee directory, and then multiple names for each letter of the alphabet could easily create 100 or more links, and many other shopping sites have that same situation. So please be aware of that if you're creating a large menu. Now let me show you how to implement it. I'll make the browser window small again, and we'll make Visual Studio Code the large size. We need to go back into the index, and we'll scroll up here till the top of the nav section, and here we're going to put a link. This link will have an href that links to the main section, the main ID with the hashtag main, and then I'm going to give it class equals skip dash link. And then we'll say skip menu items. We can save that change, and then we can go back to our CSS, and we'll scroll all the way to the bottom, and here we will quickly style the skip link as a position that is absolute. We'll start it at -999 pixels at the top, set the left to 0, the background dash color to white, padding of 0.5 rem, a Z index of 1, and a color of black for text. Now we also need to add the skip dash link focus and the skip dash link hover. And then we'll just set the top to auto and the left to auto. Now our skip link should be working. We'll go ahead and resize this, bring our browser window back, and when we load our page and we tab over, we get the option to skip menu items. And if we press enter, it instantly took us to the main part of the page. It just scrolled the page just that little bit to where the main ID was. But that certainly helps anybody that would be tabbing through a page, and if you didn't have this skip menu items feature, they would have to tab through every single letter and name in your menu which might drive them crazy if that's not what they wanted. You need to allow your users to skip the different sections instead of forcing them to tab through a huge menu. Now let's break out of DevTools and we will test our page for a screen reader with the ChromeVox screen reader. Go to chrome.google.com/webstore. Search for the free Chrome extension ChromeVox. Choose and install the ChromeVox extension. After you've installed the extension, click the three dots in the upper right of Chrome to show the menu. Click on More Tools and then Extensions. From the Extensions page, turn the screen reader on.
ChromeVox spoken feedback is ready. Employee directory. Employee directory. Heading 1. Navigation. Skip menu items. Internal link. List with 4 items. Employees with last names starting with letters A through G. List with 7 items. Employees with last names starting with the letter A. List item. List with 3 items. Adam. List item. Adam. Internal link. Alan. List item. Alan. Internal link. Alex. List item. Alex. Internal link. Employees with last names starting with the letter B. List with 2 items. Brad. List item. Brian. List item. Employees with last names starting with the letter C. List item.
And everything seems to be working as expected. There was a lot packed into today's tutorial. Take your time with it, go back over it if necessary, and the main takeaways that I hope you get are an understanding of absolute and relative positioning and how they work together, and also that you must have a skip domain content for a large menu. You cannot leave the users that must navigate with a keyboard behind and make them navigate through a huge menu to get to the main content. You must create that skip domain content link. If you decided to expand on this tutorial, you could add animations like an animated hamburger menu or some animated drop downs. And in the meantime, the videos on the left may help you on your coding journey. Thank you so much for watching and subscribing. I appreciate the support, and I'll see you next time.